Welcome to the January 29th, 2019 episode of Reactive Consciousness, our in-depth podcast about what happened this week in our lives. I am your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And OldManStompy.
Lots of 19s.
And 29s. Lots of 9s.
To the nines.
Nines, lots of nines. So anyway, a lot of interesting stuff happened this week. It's been brewing lately, but yeah, a lot of good games have of course been coming out, which is unusual. A lot of like AAA titles have been coming out recently out of the woodwork. That's not usual for late January, is it?
I don't recall anything like this dense coming out in January. Like this, sometimes it's like a Nintendo game that comes out in like early 2000, early in the year.
But that's usually because they're off base, because the company just doesn't know what.
I imagine the bulk of games come out after like some E3 announcements. Like now that the hype is real, let's get some stuff coming. that kind of thing.
Sure.
So the game market is so saturated that like you want your game to be released on a week when there isn't like a lot of other big news, and games are so cheap that I think people with any amount of disposable income can still, like, even after the holiday season, pick something up for themselves.
Buy one thing, not like multiple things. Yeah.
Like, one or two things, right? Or maybe you got like some money from your grandmother or something and you just want to like go spend it at the game store. Like,
yeah, my gammy. But yeah, just to name like the big ones that are out, we have Kingdom Hearts 3, Ace Combat 7, and Resident Evil 2 Remake, which are all apparently very good.
Not only that, but Resident Evil 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3 were never freaking going to come out. Like, we knew they were coming, but they were never going to come out. Like, just years and years and years, and now they're finally here.
I would like to go on record that I don't actually believe that Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out. I could, like, own it, and I could have beaten it and, like, seen the ending, and I still won't actually believe it.
I've already seen multiple social media posts of people holding the game. Like, I got it, but, like, who knows if they're all just Photoshops.
So is it technically out on Thursday? Because I see all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I heard that, like, Best Buy was going to have it available at, like, 9 p.m. on Wednesday or something like that. Like, it's getting to like borderline Thursday or whatever, but some people have copies in hand already, but they may have imported the Asian version.
But yeah, like I kind of blew my wad in picking up Ace Combat, because like the reason why I picked up Ace Combat as quickly as I did was for the pre-order bonus of getting Ace Combat 5, which is the only way you can get it for PS4. You can't buy it separately. So like I bought it because of a timed release item. Otherwise, I would be buying Resident Evil and having fun with that along with everybody else. But
so I screwed up in like largely the same way. Like I've complained before that my hard drive on my PS4 is maxed out with games I haven't finished yet, and I'm like incrementally approaching beating Spider-Man and clearing that off. So of course I immediately went on Amazon and I saw that Final Fantasy Type 0 was on sale for $7, so I bought it. And then I went ahead and, since Lotus Prince was talking about it, I bought 428 Shibuya Scramble.
Oh yeah, I need to buy that too.
That game is small because it's a visual novel, but like I keep saying this, but I cannot believe how good that game is.
I really need to buy that as well. I mean, there's just tons of stuff. I mean, Chaos Child is also out, which is it's not a AAA title, but I mean, it's a title that means a lot.
Oh, you know what was funny, by the way? Like, regarding Resident Evil 2, I played the demo, but when I was, like, someone in my Discord was like, oh, you should try streaming the demo, and I was like, maybe I will. And they were like, okay, just watch out, because it's pretty big. And, like, remembering that this demo is on a 30-minute time limit, and then it ends, so it is possible to beat the demo in less than that. It was like 8 gigs for the fucking demo. That's bigger than some games.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I only really have one AAA game on my console at a time, because like all the other like indie games and stuff take up a lot of the space in my hard drive. I have a 500 gig, so unfortunately, my PS4 gets clogged up very easily. So I can maybe only have like one or two AAA titles at a time. Yeah. But luckily, I mean, when you're done playing with like a game like Spider-Man, unless like content releases, like you're done with it. I mean, you might go back to
save the save file.
Exactly. You could go back to it later and reinstall it if you like. But I'm playing Spider-Man as well, OldManStompy, so that's kind of coincidental. But I'm about 54% through, something like that, of the main story.
Yeah, I am at 91%,
Wow.
I think. Although I was at 60 something when you started playing the game. It's shocking, I know, that both of us like played and bought a AAA title within like a couple of months of it coming out.
Yeah, not only that, but like that we're actually like moving along in it pretty quickly. I've only been playing it for a couple weeks now, and I'm already pretty far. And that's because I've been doing mostly side missions and like I've been doing like the research towers and all that stuff. So, but I really like it, and they just added new content. We can actually quickly talk about that. They added Fantastic Four costumes this week.
Oh my God! They added the Bagman.
And they added the Bagman.
What is Bagman? Was he from Spider-Verse or something? Because I don't know what that is at all.
I think he's from like a joke panel or something that happened when Spider-Man was part of the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Something crazy like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of which, Spider-Man actually was part of the Fantastic Four at one point.
Well, I think what had happened was maybe I think the joke was that they only had Fantastic Four suits and therefore didn't have a mask for him, so he had to put a bag on over his head.
Oh, that is true. They don't wear the suits, or they don't wear
exactly.
masks. Yeah.
They don't hide. The Fantastic Four have never hid their identities. They are Marvel's first family, and everybody knows who they are, and everybody loves them. They're not like the mutants or Spider-Man. Everybody loves them in universe. So they never really hid their identities. They're famous. Yeah, I think that's what the joke was. It wasn't. It's and it even has like the Spider-Man eyes drawn on it. It's really
that's
funny.
Great. It's so stupid.
But they also have his proper Fantastic Four suit, which is a white base suit with a black spider, which is really neat looking. And there aren't too many left that are like notable, except for maybe is the armored spider in there somewhere?
Oh, the steel spider suit.
Do you know if that's in there?
I know what you're talking about. I don't recall that suit. I have everything unlocked except for the very last suit, which is a story suit, and one of the secret suits that I think you can't get until after the game's over.
Okay.
And I don't recall seeing the steel spider or like anything like that. There's a lot of like armored suits, but I think they're all from. I don't think they have like that specific one. If we're thinking about the same thing.
And the symbiote suit is not in the game either.
Do they have his red shirt with a spider on it from like the beginning of the Sam Raimi movie?
Yes, they do.
Wow. Okay.
And they have that, and they have like wrestling Spider-Man, like the and they also have like Underoos
Spider-Man, where it's just like a black like webbing over his face.
No. He just has basically like sweats on, like when he's wrestling Crusher Hogan or
but
Bonesaw.
he had
Bonesaw.
That's what I was talking about for like the red shirt. Yeah, but I mean, but like, did they also have the comic wrestling suit where it was just like I think he was just dressed casually and had like webbing over his head or something?
Not the comic book one, but they do have what the current iteration of Spider-Man was wearing before he got his Stark suit, and also the Stark suit.
Speaking of which, like, because the Miles Morales or like the Homecoming style Spider-Man, went back to the like the '60s Spider-Man thing. Does he have a version with that, like the bat signal, like spider signal from his belt?
There actually is like a version that looks like the cartoon Spider-Man. It's like cell shaded.
Oh my god.
The only one they have all the movies except for Andrew Garfield's suit is not in there yet, but it's only a slight variant.
Yeah.
But Tobey Maguire's is in there with like the metal looking webbing.
Yeah, I remember that because people were complaining about that for weeks, and it's like, guys, the game just came out. Give us a second.
Well, they're adding a lot of free content, which is really cool of them. I'm always appreciative of after release content that's free, like that. They don't have to do that. They're just extending sales and keeping it in the news, which is really nice. We should move on because there's a lot to talk about. So probably the biggest story from this week is that people are either complaining or really complaining about this, but I don't think it's a big deal at all. Nintendo scrapped their entire Metroid 4 project and restarted it with Retro Studios helming it.
Yeah, because wasn't it like
internally developed.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just changing hands. Like, apparently they would have had to have scrapped it anyway because they had different plans or something.
Yeah, so what ended up happening was Retro Studios is, of course, the original developers of Metroid Prime 1 through 3.
Yeah, so it's actually good news that they're doing 4.
It's excellent news. That means they will do a great job. And the trilogy, the Prime trilogy, is some of the best games ever made. Not just my opinion; it's a widely held opinion. Certainly, people regard them probably like nearly as good or as good as Super Metroid in a lot of ways. At least the original Metroid Prime. You'll hear a lot of people say that.
Right. So part of what's so interesting about it is that it's usually, I mean, Nintendo we know is very good at this. It's very difficult to take a game that made the bacon originally as a 2D series and then translate the game to the same feel while maintaining like a completely 3D overworld, as opposed to just like translating the game to 2D and like making it flashier, like 2.5D. Metroid Prime is one of the few series not developed by Nintendo that made the jump, and like every single game that was made was fantastic.
Yeah, and people were really afraid because like Metroid is such a platformer, and they were like,
it could have been so bad.
Yeah, you
it could
sure
have been
you want to do
bad
that in the first person, but it actually worked.
It's amazing that things like the grappling hook and the space jump, like an infinite jump in a 3D platformer, like it worked really well.
Even jumping, just something as simple as jumping, is very good and behaves like it should, unlike any other. The only other game that I can compare it to that happened before it, that did it right, was Jumping Flash.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, where you look down when you jump.
Exactly. And no other... I have to think that they had some inspiration from there, because that was a game that was pretty ubiquitous for people who had a PlayStation early on, and they were developers in that time. At the time, Retro Studio was Iguana, I believe, or most of the people that became Retro were in Iguana, and they were making the Turok games.
Yeah, I remember that logo. I didn't realize the Retro was Iguana. Or
yeah,
at least the people were.
Yeah. A lot of the key players ended up making the first 2 Turok games, and then they went on to Retro Studios after that. A few of them splintered off and made a game for Microsoft for the Xbox One that didn't get the best reviews. I forget what it's called, but it looks like a lot of the key staff that was that made the original trilogy is still there. So it's not just them in name, and I'm sure they have a lot of their assets still that they can, work off of, at least if not use, have, something to grasp off of. But I'm sure they have plenty of ideas of what they wanted to do with a sequel, especially on a new piece of hardware, since the Wii, though the Wii was the last one. So I think it's going to be great. I am okay with a delayed game as long as it turns out good. So I'm not very upset by this. I mean, some people might say, they've been waiting long enough. I mean, we're already into year 3 for the Switch, I think is going to be this year, right? And or is it going to be full year? It's going to be the second full year.
Yeah, this is the second full year. I recall.
Yeah.
I bought it in February 2 years ago after I came back from Chicago.
So yeah, we're going to be in year 2 to 3, right? Once February hits.
Right.
So I guess they're hoping that another tentpole game comes, but I mean, we're still early on in the lifespan of this system. I expect a revision to come out at some point, maybe in the next 2 years. So I think it's still great that we have one of the tentpole series, at least the ones that North America cares about, is coming. So I'm okay with it. I don't know what your feelings are, guys, but I think you pretty much mirror my sentiments, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I never got into the Metroid Prime series as much as you did. I played the first game. I enjoyed it. I watched Luminaire play through 2 and 3. They look freaking cool. So I'm happy on principle that Metroid Prime 4 is coming out. Like, I'm not going to jump on it, but that is really cool.
Yeah, so, I mean, I love the first 3 games. I played them all pretty much as soon as they came out. I also had, like, a whole bunch of... Like, at the time when the first 2 games came out, I was in college, and my roommates were gigantic Metroid fans, and they really enjoyed playing through the games, too. So it was it was a big deal to me growing up. And so when they announced Metroid Prime 4, I was like super excited about it. I remember making a big deal about how like only Nintendo and maybe One Piece could get people excited by a blank screen with the number 4 on it.
Yeah, right.
And I only say that because I don't know if you know this, Lotus, but like when they introduced Gear 4th in One Piece, like it was a cliffhanger in a chapter at the end of a chapter that had like a 2-week hiatus after it came out. And the only spoiler that came out for people who like got the leaked images beforehand was just like the last panel of the chapter, which was literally just a black panel that said like 4th on it.
Oh, man.
The episode kind of ended that way, like Gear 4th, and you're like, what? And the episode ends. But like just the black screen with the number 4, that's like the heart from Bleach. It's like, all right.
Well, I mean, yeah. So it was literally only someone, because like obviously someone who has access to the early prints of the magazine just like takes cell phone pictures and uploads them. So they made a point to get like just that bit because it's the most exciting bit of the entire chapter.
Yeah.
But like that was excruciating. When I saw that spoiler image, we had to wait for the whole chapter and then because I think it came out during the holidays, like a whole 2 to 3 weeks to actually see what it looked like, because like you have no fucking clue what reveals are going to look like in One Piece. They're all over the map.
Yeah, Gear 2, like you can buy that. Gear 3, you never saw it coming, and Gear 4, once you see what the image looks like, it's like I wouldn't have expected that either.
Right. So anyway, the fact that Metroid Prime 4 had been announced such a long time ago, and we didn't see any information about it whatsoever, not even like a cutesy like an insert into one of the Nintendo Directs, sort of implied that like something was wrong with the game. Either it was stuck in development hell, or like not enough manpower was dedicated to it such that they could fit it into their release schedule, or just it didn't feel like it was the right time to put it out. And like now we know that like I'm actually pretty happy that they were very frank with everybody and with the fan base, and just admitted that they were having trouble with the development and they weren't happy with it, and that they're going to start from scratch. Like because Nintendo's development cycle is actually pretty fast. That's part of why they're so why their games are not like necessarily technical marvels, they're design marvels. A lot of the time the development cycle for their games is like 12 to 18 months, and so like Animal Crossing, they announced that was coming out in 2019, and people are expecting that's going to come out actually pretty early, like March or April.
Wow.
Nintendo is pretty good at executing a plan when it comes when it like meets their expectations.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking Majora's Mask, where like they had like a year, so that's why there were so many reused assets, and they just put a really creative story behind why that was.
Sure, like that, and that was a brilliant game, and like arguably one of the best Zelda games, or at least certainly like one of the most unique, up there with like Breath of the Wild. In terms of like how it plays. So I have a lot of faith that the game at least will be like serviceable. Like it'll be worth playing through at least once. The Prime series, it lagged a little bit at the end. I think the third game was the weakest one in the series.
Really?
But well, I mean, it had a lot of like Wii motion controls that were kind of tacked on. And
I love the
grapple to grip the shield was cool as shit, but otherwise, yeah.
I feel like the story they tried to add, I think it took away from the game. Like Metroid is very much about like isolation and being this like very powerful entity. These alien landscapes.
Federation. You mean?
And they brought in all this like stuff, and like they then compounded it by making Other M, which like really added a lot of story baggage.
Yeah.
So like going back to the series roots a little bit, just about like the alienness and the exploration. Like Vice, you mentioned the same thing when you were referring to. When you played the remake of Metroid 2, the Nintendo one, the Nintendo one, not the fan one.
Sure, I played them both, but
I know you played them both, but specifically with regards to the official one, that the game made you feel like a little too powerful and a little too structured, and they dumped a little bit too much on you at once in terms of like power ups, and like it kind of made the game feel really artificial. That's not really when Metroid is at its strongest, even though it is like very video gamey most of the time.
Yeah. With Metroid, you should really feel a very huge sense of relief when you finally get the thing that has been that will unlock everything that stopped you up until that point, from moving on to where you've wanted to go. Not necessarily where it led you, but where you've wanted to go. You've been wanting to go here. You've been wanting to go there.
Well, no,
you've been getting stopped every point.
Yeah,
because you don't have the right item.
No, that's a big point too. It's not even like there are some things you can get that unlock other things, like the super missile or the power bomb. They can actually unlock doors that you couldn't get into before. But a lot of your really big power ups are for convenience. Like I've established this before, but during Games Done Quick, someone did a reverse boss order run. You can do that. You just wish you didn't, because like you don't need the Varia suit to go into the lava area. It'll just suck if you don't have it. So when you finally get the Varia suit, you're like, now I feel confident about entering the lava area.
Mm-hmm. And usually they tease you too by forcing you to go through like some easy lava areas without the Varia suit before you actually get it. So you're like relieved that you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not in the lava, you're just taking constant heat damage anyway. So it's like, I'd rather come back when I have more health and the Varia suit.
I mean, like one of the key moments in Super Metroid is when you first get your first power bomb. Up until that point, you are very, very stifled in where you can move and where you, everywhere you want to go, you keep hitting dead ends. And once you finally find the first power bomb that you're supposed to find, if you're not sequence breaking, like first of all, it's like hidden, like it's in an area where you have to bomb. It's not like on a Chozo statue or anything. It's like it's kind of you have to bomb at it in order to find it, and but once you have it, you're like, oh man, now I can do all this stuff.
Yeah, well, it's similar in Bloodborne. Like when I watched the Game Grumps play some of it, Aaron already knew where to go in a lot of cases because he was starting a new game and picking up on knowledge he already had. But he was able to find an item called Madman's Knowledge, which when you get it, you can unlock the ability to level up back at the hub. But like you can find that, but you kind of have to go out of your way to do it. Like the sort of intended way to get Madman's Knowledge is to beat a boss. So either way, like when you finally beat that boss, or if you do enough exploring and get Madman's Knowledge, you're like, thank God, like the real game starts now. I can actually change my stats instead of just try and die at level 1 for the 100th time.
Sure. Well, we should move on to other news because there's plenty else to talk about. But I did want to mention that. I mean, there's a lot of people complaining online, but there are plenty of other people that are mirroring OldManStompy's sentiments in saying like they are commending Nintendo with their communication, which isn't normal for them, I might add. They're usually not this communicative, but everybody seems to be a lot of people seem to be glad that they did, because it's respecting people's time and their thirst for wanting to play the game, for wanting a good title. So a much anticipated title. So they were honest, and not only that, but they made good on it by saying, "Hey, we're going to get it done right this time. We're going to give it to the right team." So really, really cool. Couple little things. Yakuza Kiwami is getting a PC port, which is a big surprise, actually.
Yeah, so that's another Yakuza game that's on PC. What was the first one? 0?
It's 0, yeah. So I would think that Kiwami 2 will soon follow, probably sometime this year.
Yeah, and maybe even set up for when they remaster 3 through 5, and maybe 6 as well.
This is good news because that series has been locked to the PS4. So not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's a better thing to have in more hands than
the series in general has been PlayStation exclusive forever.
Forever, yeah.
Like, I mean, 1 and 2 will still always be on the PS2 unless you want to import the Japanese only 1 and 2 HD remasters, but Kiwami 1 and 2 pretty much take care of that.
Well, this is also a very good sign that Sega is confident in its brand, globally, rather than just in Japan now.
Dude, Yakuza 6 sold more, I think, in the West than it did in Japan, making a first for the series.
Very, very good. It's very, very good news, because for the longest time, Sega really didn't believe in it. We almost didn't get Yakuza 2. We almost didn't get 3, and when we did, it was butchered.
Was it ever?
We almost didn't get 5. 4 was less of a tribulation,
fucking
but
knocked it out of the park.
5 we only got.
Only.
we only got because Sony asked them to publish it.
Yeah.
And it was digital only.
Yep.
Which was lame. That's the only game that was digital only out of the entire series. You would think that of the Dead, out of all of them, would have been the digital one.
Of the End or Dead Souls, but
or
yeah,
Dead Souls, yeah.
That was a weird one, but like, yeah, no, we got that box. It's fine. All right.
But yeah, I think that it's great. And also it means that the series is doing well, and also that Sega's doing well with it. So. I'm always a fan of when Sega's doing well, because I'm a huge Sega fan.
Yeah, then you get weird, crazy projects, like Fist of the North Star, Lost Paradise.
They start taking more risks. They come out with other games other than Yakuza. They also, localize games instead of keeping them there on, like, Phantasy Star Online 2.
By the way, that's a freaking outlier. By the way, here's a weird little quirk. You know how the Yakuza series, not all of them, but in general, they have arcade areas where you can play like retro, like sometimes new content like Boxilios, but more recently, Sega stuff like Virtua Fighter 2 or like a bunch of different Yakuza games have had Super Hang-On, Space Harrier, and Outrun.
Yeah.
Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise does have those, but in a really weird twist, you can actually find a Sega Mark III, which is basically a Japanese Sega Genesis, and you can play...
No, a Mark III is the Master System.
Oh, the Master System, excuse me. And you can play the Fist of the North Star Master System game.
Like Black Belt over here. It was called Black Belt, yeah.
That's right, I was confusing it with Last Battle, which was the actual
the
Genesis.
Second game.
Yeah.
It was the second game.
But yeah, you could play old school Fist of the North Star, which I don't think ever... Like, I mean, you're saying Black Belt, but like it never came over in that way to the West, which is kind of interesting.
That's awesome. In fact, it didn't make sense when it came over as Black Belt because, when you're fighting one of the bad guys, I forget which one. You'll correct me. He like turns into stone after you fight him, and
wait, actually, what?
He goes, "I will never die," and turns himself into stone. I don't know.
I don't remember that. Maybe that was censoring. I don't remember that. It could have happened. Fist of the North Star is weird. Maybe that did happen, but I don't remember that.
But in Black Belt, it makes no sense.
Well, I thought you were going to go the more conventional direction and say it makes no sense because you touch people and they fucking explode.
Yeah, that's true too.
Because Last Battle obviously had that. Speaking of which, if they ever do another Fist of the North Star game, I hope they do the Genesis Fist of the North Star and just keep it going. That'd be great.
Nice. Well, we should keep moving on here. There was some... so I've been talking about this Psikyo shmup games. Psikyo. Shmup games that have been coming out on the Switch. There has been a lull in them as of late, which kind of stinks. The last one that they released, I think, was Sengoku Canon, which is like the third Sengoku game, and
like the beat 'em up.
No, Sengoku. It's Sengoku Canon, and it's a shmup. I'll just put it that way. But I forget what they're called.
Sengoku beat 'em ups on like Neo Geo.
Yeah, no, they're. One of them's called Tengai in the United States, and the other one, they're Samurai Aces is the first one, but they're called Sengoku Shot or something like that in Japan. Okay. But anyway, the third game came out on the eShop on the Switch, but it never came out in the United States, and it was odd because all the Psikyo releases up until this point have come over almost right away. Probably there's probably a good reason for this. So the Sengoku Canon, the third game, never had an English release version. It only came out on PSP, so technically it's a PSP port. It's like a Switch port of a PSP game.
Weird.
So they probably have to inject English into it in order to sell it here, like, realistically. So maybe they might not even bring it over. They haven't been communicative about it at all.
Maybe they'll pull a PS3 and just do it in Japanese, like Choniki, like here, just fucking try it.
Here, buy it.
Yeah.
I dare you. But
it's in like the other section, and there's like
I mean,
5 games in total. That's one
it's
of them.
a shmup, and the people that want to buy it are going to be the people that buy it anyway. I mean, I'm thinking about just buying the Japanese version because it's not that hard on the Switch. But it's very easy to buy Japanese eShop games. It's super easy.
I'm super happy about that too, because finally, like, just do it.
You don't have to mess around. You can even use your own PayPal account and everything.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's super easy.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, they are also going to release, which is that game isn't that great. I just wanted to have like all the games. But they're also releasing a third game, which is Strikers 1999. And you've seen me play Strikers 1945 Plus or 1945 over at Con Bravo.
So I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So this is the game with the where you're in that 1940. Like it looks like the old Capcom shmups, but it also has mechs in it.
Mm-hmm.
So this game has never been ported to consoles. And so they are going to be releasing this in Japan soon, and it's going to get a physical release with Sengoku Cannon and one other game. I think it's called Gun Barrage, which is the Gunbird game, but with brick-breaking mechanics.
Huh.
Which is really interesting. It's kind of a cool game. Also, Zero Gunner 2 is on there, which was already released in the United States. So this will be Psikyo Collection Volume 3, which will be the most significant of the physical releases. They released the other 2. But they are including a novelty mousepad of the main character.
It's a very generous way, a novelty mousepad.
So clearly it's a mousepad of one of the planes you play as, right?
It is one of the things you can pilot.
Jesus.
So yeah, the main character of Tengai is a very busty lady, and you can get a boob mouse pad if you get the limited edition of this. I will be getting the regular edition if I ever buy it.
You know what the greatest boob mouse pad ever made was?
It's of a guy's chest, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Joseph Joestar when he's dressing in drag to fool the Nazis. And it's like the word, and like they all stare at him. They're like, "That's a terrible disguise." Just beats the shit out of them. They're not even attacking because they're like, "Are you kidding me?" He just kicks their asses.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention how shameless this series is with its fan service. Like the first 2 games in the series are very good. The third one is not, but like the third game only really sold because of the fan service here. So they're including this mouse pad to go along with it. So if you want that kind of thing, I don't want this kind of thing around my house. I'll be hit on the head very, very swiftly.
Get Joseph Joestar, I'll be fine.
There's some other things here. Killer 7 got on Steam got an update that actually added content. Well, like a little bit. So apparently it adds a tie-in with Travis Strikes Again.
Yeah, so now
which is really neat.
The PC release was already the definitive release because, modified for HD and widescreen, but apparently now content-wise as well.
Yeah, so they added a story beat. I'm not sure what it is, and I don't care because I want to wait until I play Travis Strikes Again, but apparently has something to do with Dan Smith. So
yeah, I just saw like a still image of Dan Smith, and it's like, oh, coming back to Killer 7.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this. So that's really neat that he is bringing all his most famous games together. Which
watch there
really
be a
neat.
skin in No More Heroes where Travis is replaced by Travis for Killer 7, and just see who gets it.
Ooh, yeah.
You just have like novelty shirts.
Well, all we need is Killer is Dead to be added into this, and
Killer is Dead took some gameplay mechanic inspiration from Killer 7, and it had that cell shaded look.
Sure.
It was really Mondo Zappa. But last we saw him, he was on the moon, I think.
Yep, left on the moon, just like
even though the moon
Mega
was also
Man
the
Legends
second
2.
level of the game, it's fine.
Just like Mega Man Legends 2, left on the moon.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, that's where the cliffhanger of Mega Man Legends 2 is Mega Man left on the moon, and he never comes back.
I knew there was a cliffhanger, but I didn't know he was on the moon. Like,
yeah, he's on the moon.
Okay then.
Yep.
So I will say that, like, I was playing Mega Man 11 recently, and like it's actually kind of sad to play Mega Man 11 when the series is so happy-go-lucky, knowing that like everything that happens in the Mega Man universe after like the regular Mega Man.
It's basically an
games
apocalypse.
is like a series of consecutive apocalypses.
And it's funny because the gameplay, like with the early X games, and well, even the mid, well, in general, everything except for X7, like the gameplay for all the Mega Man games never really changes. You're platforming, levels are colorful, you're killing cartoony-looking enemies, but like the lore is brutal.
Yeah, because then Mega Man X happens, and basically almost all the humans are dead, right? At that point,
it's rough. Well, it's like Splatoon. Like, what a fun game. Oh, wait, this is after humans are dead. And apparently there's lore where, like, people find bones in their yard, and they're like, I don't know what this is. And they're like, human bones from the previous era. It's like, Christ's sake, Nintendo, okay.
So, in Mega Man 04, which is, like, not even the last Mega Man game chronologically, there's at least, like, 4 more
Mega Man
that.
Legends 2. Mega Man Legends 2 is.
Yeah, so there's the 2 ZX games are after 04, and the 2 Mega Man Legend games are after that, or like even further after that. But in 04, you found like the largest pocket of human survivors left alive, who aren't like under this version of Dr. Wily's control, and the robot masters that you fight, the 8 robot masters in this game, are each like conducting an entirely separate plan to eradicate this tiny band of humans.
God damn,
on the face of
Jesus!
the earth. It's like
haven't you done
fuck
enough?
These humans specifically.
That sucks.
Yeah, and it's already a shitscape to begin with, even for the robots. Like it's a post-apocalypse for them.
Yeah, no one's happy.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There's like an apocalypse for the robots after X8. Leading into the 0 series, and then like there are several apocalyptic events during the 0 series, and then things seem to be okay during ZX, but like we know that by the time of Legends there's like literally no organic life left on the planet aside from like stuff that's been regrown from genetic material.
Well,
Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, I know in the
it's
the
a Wind
Japanese
Waker
version of
situation
Legends
where
1,
they
you could
flooded
kick-
it.
Well, no, I was gonna say, like, this is not the case in America because it was censored, but I know in the Japanese release of Mega Man Legends 1, you could kick dogs like an asshole, meaning that dogs are alive.
Well, dogs are there, but yeah.
Also, yeah. One of my there's a Let's Player I watch who played through like all of the Mega Man in sequence. He's up to ZX right now. Yeah, and so he did include the DOS Mega Man and Mega Man 3, which is like really funny too.
Wait,
Which
did he include
apparently had
Game
the
Gear
same-
Mega Man? Please tell me
he
you
played-
include Game Gear Mega Man.
He played Game Gear Mega Man. He played Wonder Swan Color Mega Man Rockman.exe.
How about
He played,
Tiger Electronic Mega Man 2?
I don't think that you can record that. I'm sure if it was possible, he would have done that.
Well, no. By the way, apparently Mega Man and Mega Man 3 on DOS, like, they're different games, but they have the identical text ending screen with like his plans to destroy the world were stopped. So, like, now they're not there anymore. It was the same ending screen. Like, oh, thanks.
That's amazing.
That's super lame. I mean, I wasn't expecting much because the first ending screen sucked, but it's the same ending screen.
Well, we should move on because there's plenty of other lore to talk about here. This is actually very timely because in the previous Corrective Consciousness episode, I talked about Steamworld quite a bit, and a new game was released like a day after we recorded.
Yeah.
So this is Steamworld Quest, Hand of Gilgamesh. So they are trying yet another gameplay style. So their first game in the series was a tower defense game on the DSi, and then they had the first Dig game, which is an exploratory Metroidvania-ish platformer. Not quite Metroidvania, but you get the idea. And then a tactics game, and then, of course, Dig 2, which is done in the same style as Dig. But now they're doing an RPG, a turn-based RPG with a card system. So I expect it to be very good. I'm not a big fan of RPGs with card systems. But they have done a really good job at making all of their games fun so far.
Just
And
pretend it's
even
Baten Kaidos and you'll love it.
well, even in a genre that I don't particularly like with Steamworld Heist, I actually ended up really enjoying. I'm very far in that game and close to beating it. and I'm still enjoying it quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to this because this company does a really good job at making these games, and I'm glad that they're not getting stuck in a rut by making the same game that's popular in their catalog. I think that's really cool of them. It's also in a different part of the chronology. They have like a Bible going on where they've made their own chronology. Apparently, in their chronology, like Turing never invented, his machine. So, like World War II happened differently. So that's how like the Steam world happened. So like everything went Steam based rather than computer based. So it's pretty neat, really neat stuff. This is of course going to have like a fantasy bent to it. Steamworld Heist takes place in space because it's like way after the Earth explodes and it spreads all of the steam bots that were on Earth to other parts of the galaxy because it shot them. Like the Earth exploded and shot them like into the universe. So I'm interested to hear about when this takes place because obviously Dig happens before Heist. So I'm excited. And it is the lead platform is the Switch. Which goes to show you that games are selling better on the Switch than anywhere, and that's very unusual. For a while, Steam had a very big stranglehold on where games were being sold. And PS4 really can't compete with it, and possibly because of the ubiquity of the platform. Everybody kind of has a PC that they can use. Especially for indie games, this is how indie games were played. AAA titles you might have seen better results on the consoles, because they have more intensive graphics. But now indie games are selling way better on the Switch than on Steam, and I think it's because of the portability and how well it handles those titles. So. Really cool. It is moving to other platforms after that, so don't feel bad. But it's still kind of neat. Let me see here.
Actually, speaking of which, I have a segue from there based on what you just said.
Oh, cool.
Speaking of moving into other platforms later, this kind of bothered a lot of people because it was a last minute kind of announcement. Like I think only 2 weeks before launch. But Metro Exodus. Suddenly, because Metro Exodus is part of the Metro series, like Metro 2033,
This happened today, I think.
It's recent, but like Metro Exodus was announced to be temporarily exclusive. Like, how Shadow of the Tomb Raider was, or maybe it was Rise of the Tomb Raider, I forgot, was Xbox exclusive for some period of time until then it hit the other platforms. A year, you said? So, same thing here. So, Metro Exodus is going to be exclusive to Epic Games. So you're going to have to use the Epic Games launcher and everything to go through with it. But the thing is, it's been pre-orderable on Steam forever. Now, they are announcing that Steam pre-orders will be honored, so pre-order people are not going to get screwed over. But still, people are pretty irritated that, oh, by the way, it's going to be on the Epic Games launcher. Now, this will also be for a year. It will be exclusive to Epic Games Store until February 14th, 2020. So you can get it when it comes out on Epic Games, or if you really insist on Steam, then you can wait a year. But, again, like Doom Eternal was mentioned to be exclusive to Bethesda, and people were kind of like, oh man, but this Metro thing was announced really last minute, so it got people mad.
It must have been that Epic came to them with a really good profit sharing deal, and like out of nowhere, and this just happened like right now. Like even Valve had their pants taken down. Valve usually doesn't put any editorial stuff out there, like their opinion really doesn't get put out there very often. They on their page are very salty on the
I forgot what the
Metro
wording
page.
Was, but didn't they say it was unfair to customers?
It was unfair to them and unfair to the customers.
Unfair to the customers. Again, Steam pre-orders will be honored, and timed exclusives are a dick move. I don't know if it's unfair to customers though, because anybody can get the Epic launcher for nothing. I mean, like, I understand where they're coming from, but honestly, I think they're just trying to disguise saying that it's unfair to them. Personally,
yeah, it is unfair. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I mean, like, at the moment, the opportunity cost for switching between various like launcher platforms for your PC games is practically nothing aside from having the hard drive space.
Yeah.
To and just the mental load of managing a bunch of different applications to manage your games. Like the end game is that like now you've got. I mean, it seems superficially that it's awesome that we've got sort of four or five competing stores. We've got the Discord store, we've got GOG, we've got Steam, we've got the Epic Games launcher.
Yeah, Bethesda.
It's a somewhat new. Yeah, it's a somewhat new development. Like, it used to be that almost everything was on Steam, and you would only have to go to another service for a game if that company was launching that service specifically. And they wanted to use their service to pay to play their games, like Blizzard and Battle.net.
Yeah, or EA and Origin. Yeah.
But to drive a comparison, it wasn't that long ago that like Netflix was basically the only major streaming service, right? And then as other companies got into it, now all of a sudden you've got to maintain like a $9 subscription to a whole bunch of different sources if you want to watch like all the shows that you like.
Yeah, well, that's a big difference because the game launchers don't cost. Like, those streaming services are brutal. You are going to be bleeding money if you have like 6 different streaming services.
Yeah, so it's not like what a cable subscription used to be like, where you bought like packages, like specific packages of channels, and then like continually upsold yourself based on the number of channels you wanted to see. Sort of like if you're subscribing to like HBO and Netflix and Amazon Prime and Stars and the Disney streaming service that's coming out soon,
and CBS.
Like that's a $9 to $12 hit that you're taking like every month for every service.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's troubling to think like kind of the video game market is trending a little bit, is starting to explore into that space. Like I make comments about this all the time, but I have a subscription to the Humble Bundle that gets me like 5 to 6 free games, plus access to their trove, which is a bunch of indie games that are like long past their day in the sun.
Yeah.
And like Nintendo, they have their online service that gives you like, and PlayStation Now, their online service, like we're starting to head in that direction. And I have some concern that we're hitting the inflection point once like the battle lines have been drawn and most of the major publishers have chosen like one of the major release platforms to like head up. We're going to wind up with this like heavily compartmentalized set of launchers that are going to start selling premium services, and it's going to wind up not being that much better than just having to buy a console.
Yeah, the thing with these different services, though, I will give them a little credit. They're not like the only way to get these games. It's just that they'll give you discounts or like the Humble Bundle stuff. Like you can get games a lot cheaper in a package or whatever. But at least they're not blocking access. Like, if I really want to get Metro Exodus right now, I can start an Epic Games account for nothing. It's annoying that I have to launch it through this other launcher, but I can just do it. Whereas the streaming services are like, it's this or you don't watch it. The only thing I would like wholeheartedly concede, though, regarding video game services costing and being prohibitive is having to pay for multiplayer for certain games with PS Plus or Xbox Live or whatever Nintendo's thing is called. That pisses me off. But
like, imagine if these games don't let you play with each other's services, even if you buy them, they're available on multiple services unless you pay a fee. Like,
yeah, so well, that was an issue at first for Fortnite with Sony. Sony was trying to pull that shit with Fortnite, and everyone was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
So it was somewhat of a minor miracle that, like, for example, Nintendo and Microsoft worked out a deal that allowed multiplayer on Minecraft, which is like,
that was crazy. Touchstone.
Yeah. So like, I guess what I'm really concerned about is that, like, on the surface we always say that competition is good for the consumer, but like once like the industry settles into a steady state, you wind up with certain situations like where everybody's in the pocket of like one or more major developers or one or more major studios. You wind up with a situation potentially like what we have right now in the US with telecom, where like for every like for example, for every area you live, there's usually one dominant telecom company that you can subscribe to, and every other service
it's like
is
a local monopoly.
Much worse. They're all local monopolies, and they don't necessarily collude with each other to maintain that. Although I'm sure in some areas they do. It just isn't profitable.
In Philadelphia, they definitely do.
Yeah, so like it just is. Even if that wasn't the case, it wouldn't really be profitable to like try to push into an area or it very infrequently would be profitable. So it allows these companies to maintain these local monopolies. partially because of capitalism and partially because telecom is so tightly regulated. But like, so my concern is that once the industry reaches a steady state, we're going to wind up with these like siloed sets of PC games. When it used to be that you would get everything through Steam, and obviously that has its own problems. But like, we're in a position right now where it's like pretty much the best time ever to be alive as a gamer. You know, like I cannot stress this enough.
You
have access to tens of thousands of fantastic games for like practically nothing, and I hope that the end game for like all of these new services launching is that benefit continues to exist.
Not
for,
only
like,
that,
people into the hobby,
but for the stuff that isn't available, we still have very accessible piracy with with no harsh consequences, essentially. But so for old games, I mean, like 16-bit, 8-bit, and 32-bit games, nobody cares about those. So like you could still freely download those pretty much. Without any consequence.
I know I've mentioned this before. I found a new like shared directory now that EMU Paradise is down. I know we've talked about this before on the podcast, and they said that like they got contacted once by Nintendo, and Nintendo didn't even really care that they had basically the entire like 8 and 16-bit and Nintendo 64 and Nintendo library for free download, except for like maybe 6 or 7 games that they asked them to take down.
Yeah.
Which is pretty surprising because Nintendo is supposedly the company that torpedoed EMU Paradise, so that the fact that there's some like other organization outside of the U.S. that's sharing like basically the entire library, and Nintendo is not interested in launching a legal campaign against them is pretty nice.
Yeah. So I'm gonna quickly read Valve's message on, and this is directly on Metro Exodus's page on Steam, and this is of 11 p.m. on January 28th, 2019. Later today, sales of Metro Exodus will be discontinued on Steam due to a publisher decision to make the game exclusive to another PC store. First of all, they are never editorial, especially not on somebody's page. And they also are directly... They didn't say their name, but they're directly mentioning that there are other stores. Which all of this is unusual. The developer and publisher have assured us that all prior sales of the game on Steam will be fulfilled on Steam, and Steam owners will be able to access the game and any future updates or DLC through Steam. We think the decision to remove the game is unfair to Steam customers, especially after a long pre-sale period. We apologize to Steam customers that were expecting it to be available for sale through February 15th release date, but we only recently were informed of the decision and given limited time to let everybody know. So this is directly on the game's page on Steam, which you never see this kind of stuff. It's real odd. So I think it's time that Epic is actually flexing their might finally, because they have a hit game that you can only get on their store, which is Fortnite. Fortnite is like the biggest game going right now. Nobody can touch it. I'm confident in saying it's the #1 game right on the internet right now. Am I out of base by saying that?
Fortnite? So, yeah. I mean, like, Netflix recently like released a story that said that they lose traffic to Fortnite. Like, Fortnite is more popular than Netflix.
So, therefore, that is the only game they've ever mentioned. So, I'm confident in saying that this is Fortnite is the #1 dominant game because of its ubiquity. I think you could play it on mobile phones and tablets all over the world, right? It's not just PCs here in America or consoles here in America. It's all over the world. People can play on their phones, right? So, and those your account links up to your other versions of the game too, right? I think it's a universal platform, unlike a lot of other games. So they can flex their muscle, and they want to build into a Steam-like service, which they didn't have. the pull to do. I mean, Steam, people forget, the whole reason why Steam took off to begin with was they launched it with a big hit game, the biggest hit game of its day,
2.
Which was Half-Life 2. Nobody would have Steam if it weren't for Half-Life 2. So they did the same thing, but even bigger, if you ask me, because Fortnite's a huge game. It's way bigger than Half-Life 2 ever was. So, every little kid that you know will have either played a bunch of Fortnite or are playing it right now. They're all into it. So it's a big thing. So they also have locked down quite a few other things. I think the Super Meat Boy sequel that's going to come out soon this year is Epic Games only as well, which is really surprising. So they're courting some of the indie game darlings. Edward McMillan obviously is getting courted here. So really interesting stuff. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But yeah, it stinks to people that want to have everything all in one place. I mean, I know that Lotus mostly has all of his games on GOG. I mostly have all of my games on Steam just because I like seeing them all there, not opening a whole bunch of services all at once to access all my games. I like the way that Steam updates games and keeps them going. I also like the fact that it's a widely used service, so therefore it's more likely to get the attention it deserves if there's a problem with the game. But I digress. I mean, looks like there's going to be a pretty big war when it comes to these gaming services coming up. So it's going to be interesting. Now, speaking of Edward McMillan, I know OldManStompy probably saw this. The Switch version of Binding of Isaac finally got its update.
so this completes what would have been the final booster packs for what was Afterbirth Plus, those last few that added a whole bunch of achievements, totally out of the blue,
and a character,
and another character.
Yeah. So a big deal. It's not just a balance patch or something like that. It's an actual big content patch. There is no other content planned for Isaac, right?
No, there is. There's another expansion planned.
Yeah, the Resurrection.
So there was a mod that came out for Binding of Isaac called Anti-Birth.
Oh, that's
right. Yeah.
So that was actually for the original Binding of Isaac Rebirth. I don't think it was even compatible with the first Afterbirth. And it came out around the same time as Afterbirth Plus, and I think the developers, they were so unhappy with the mod support that they said that they would never try to make Anti-Birth compatible with Afterbirth Plus. But eventually, it was a I never played it, but it looked like a very intricate mod, one of practically an entirely new game. And some of the artists and developers for Anti-Birth wound up working with Ed McMillan to release the last 3 or 4 booster packs, and that's why they were so robust, and why there was a whole other character, a bunch of new enemies. They were all working with active mod developers to develop that content. And so eventually it was announced that Anti-Birth would be released as a commercial release.
Okay, yeah,
as an
that's
expansion for Binding of Isaac. I forget what it's called. I guess Lotus, you probably remember.
Well, I mean, was this the Resurrection thing or something like that?
I guess it was. But the whole thing caught me completely off guard. I really thought that the Binding of Isaac was over and that it was really just up to me. Whenever I had lost the achievement race to Lotus Prince, so I had sort of lost interest in the game for a while until I really felt grinding out those last few.
Yeah, I still have one achievement that I just lost interest in.
Oh boy. Well, and then I went onto the to the subreddit just on a whim, and I saw that there was a whole bunch of, or maybe I loaded up the game on Steam. I don't remember how I found out about this, but I saw that there were 80 new achievements or something, and I was like, what
yeah,
happened?
that's exactly what happened to me.
From? And
yeah, I opened up Steam one day, and it's you now have 78% of achievements. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
So actually, I played the game once and it unlocked a whole bunch of achievements, and for a day, I had one more achievement than you.
Yeah, at this
you
point,
also played the game.
But at this point, the last achievement I'm missing is there's an item called the Book of the Dead. I think it's called the Book of the Dead, where when you use it, when you kill enemies, if you're in a room where you just killed enemies, then when you use it, something will happen. I think like there's a pretty good chance they'll spawn like black hearts or bone hearts or something, or maybe they'll spawn little I forgot what they're called, but the little objects that rotate around you as a defensive shield, like little bone pieces that do that. Or if you're really lucky, they could spawn those little skeleton enemies, but they work for you. So there's an achievement where you spawn 3 skeleton enemies like at the same time. But like for the life of me, I just can't find the Book of the Dead at all, and it's driving me crazy. So I kind of gave up. I mean, like I've unlocked it, but I just can't like find it in an item room or something, or the devil room or whatever.
Wow. Well, we can expect the Switch version to be complete in another 2 years.
I mean, like,
yeah, that's the thing. Like they finally
this game
updated.
is 8 years old. like just let it die.
No, that's a different game.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not an Ed McMillan game. Like,
no, it is not.
Although we can say the end is nigh. You know when.
Let it die. The end is nigh.
Yeah.
So, I think the last big thing was that we wanted to talk about a little bit of OldManStompy's favorite arcade attraction here.
Oh, sure. So, there was the Japan Arcade Exposition was like last week or this week, and I guess it was last week. And like I knew it was coming up mostly because this is when they have the Konami Arcade Championship. So that and this was always interesting to me because like I'm a big Dance Dance Revolution fan, and sort of oddly, Dance Dance Revolution is like one of the only games where there's like a significant Japanese tournament scene, but like Japanese players are by far the worst out of like all the major communities that play DDR. Yeah, so and it's kind of funny in that like the qualifying like logistics keep changing to allow like more and more Japanese players to come in and less Korean and American players. And so you basically get like the same Korean guy and the same American guy coming every single year. and they just like completely annihilate all of the Japanese players. It usually isn't even close.
Wow.
There's like one other guy, I think he's from Taiwan, who comes in and can compete with the two of them. But otherwise, it's just like a slaughter. The qualifying scores from the top American player were like unbelievable. They were like practically inhuman, which is common for like significant video game accomplishments. You know, especially we've just talked about AGDQ and about how you watch like these incredibly intricate runs,
hundreds of hours, if not thousands.
Yeah. So the tournament was won this year by the Korean player FEFEMZ. I don't even know how you'd begin pronouncing that. FEFEMZ.
Yeah, FEFEMZ.
He's won 4 out of the last 5 years. The American player I Am Chris for Life, who I don't know if you recall, but there was a little documentary series about him. The one year that FEFEMZ didn't win, Chris won. He's also he was a world record holder in Guitar Hero for a while, so he was also like a little bit on the American press circuit because of that. I think he was one of the first people to full combo the Dragon Force song Through the Fire and the Flames.
Oh shit!
Wow.
Yeah. So back when Guitar Hero 2 was like the big thing. So he's been around the dance game community for a really long time. He holds like almost every world record on like the older versions of DDR. Just like the best recorded scores back before there were on the mixes that existed before there was online score tracking. He has like these unbelievable, like impossible scores that on things that nobody even cares about anymore.
Yeah.
He qualified number 1 for the Japan Expo Konami Arcade Championships. And so that meant that like he went as a wild card because he was the number 1 qualifier. Like one other American player went as the top American player. And then they fought against like they had a separate qualifier for East and West Japan, which is like completely like a complete waste of time, because like they're both worse than everybody else in the tournament. I think. Not that they're bad by any stretch of the imagination. They're fantastic players. Just that like they're so. What's interesting to me is I mean I don't know how interesting this really is as a spectator sport, but like DDR is one of those things where if you're a better player, like broadly speaking, then you will almost never lose to a worse player. There's very little variance in DDR. So aside from like interesting tournament choices, like maybe hoping the the other players are just not familiar with one of the songs, which is unlikely because like the pool of like very hard songs is very small in DDR. Like you have almost no chance of beating a superior player. The Fifams and Chris actually the finals match had a really interesting tactical decision I'd like to just touch on briefly here, which is that the Korean player picked a song that has a big change in tempo. It's like 180 or 170 BPM for most of the song, but like at one part at the start it goes up to 480, and then at the end it doubles again to like 340 or 360 or whatever. I don't remember the exact BPM, but so usually what that means is players will play the song at the fastest possible speed they can read the fast parts at, because they'll try to get into their comfort zone for those parts and maybe even push themselves a little faster than they normally read, and then just so that they have a comfortable reading speed for the rest of the song, which is comparatively slow. So what the Korean player did was he picked a obnoxiously fast speed, knowing that Chris would pick a slower speed, and then he just read off of Chris's screen for the really fast parts, which like I've done once on a laugh.
No screen looking.
I did it to myself, like for a song that had a really, really, really slow part. Like I put in the tokens on both sides of the machine, and I played on the other side of the machine for the really slow part. I put it on like 8x or whatever the fastest scroll speed was. But like I got made fun of a lot for doing that from my friends who play DDR. But like this was actually the actual World Championships, and he's literally screen watching, and you can see him do it on the live stream. It's really funny. Like someone posted screen captures. I guess I had never really thought about why he was playing on a really high speed mod for the fast parts until someone actually posted screen captures showing his like pupils shifting over to like Chris's side of the screen.
Oh man.
I thought that was pretty funny. The other thing, of course, is that they announced that there's a DDR 20th anniversary edition coming out. It comes in this like incredibly gaudy. I don't know if you guys clicked on the link that I sent around, but it's like this really gaudy golden cabinet that looks like it belongs in the Golden Pagoda in Yakuza 2.
Let me take a look at this.
2DX Gold!
It's like, so I don't know if you know, but 2DX,
wow, look at this thing.
But Gold Rush is in DDR X2, and it has like several alternate variations of the 2DX Gold thing. Okay, so for people who don't know for Gold Rush, it's a song that was on 2DX Gold, which is the 14th mix of Beatmania 2DX. And there's a break in the middle of the song where this guy just like comes in while there's a building backbeat, and he just recites the names of all of the Beatmania 2DX mixes. So he just goes like first mix, second mix, third mix, and then at all the end he goes like 11, 12, 2DX
Disney
go! Mix. It's like Disney mix is that
Mario
was
mix.
DDR. Yeah, that was DDR. So when they imported Gold Rush to DDR, which they did in DDR X2, they actually added 2 alternate versions of that scroll where the same announcer goes through all the versions of DDR.
Oh, cool.
So it does actually end in like DDR X2. It sounds really
nice.
It's amazing. It's like, I mean, the song is garbage, but the rest of the song is this guy. I can't remember who does the rap, but he's played by an American guy who goes by the name of Stillwind, I think is his music name. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's the guy who actually does the rap. But one of the Japanese composers just like raps in English, and it's completely incomprehensible for the entire rest of the song. It's such a meme song, and it's like really intentionally designed to be a meme song. Unfortunately, the guy. The English guy who pretends to be Michael Alamode, the artist in the song, the rapper, actually passed away shortly after Gold Rush came out, like very suddenly. So they don't do the Michael Alamode songs anymore, and that's kind of a shame. So it'll just live on forever as 2DX Gold, and now we have DDR Gold. So it's also that was actually it played a lot into the finals of the tournament because they had to play on this machine that none of them were familiar with. They debuted it for the tournament. You know, it was kind of like their the Wizard Super Mario Bros. 3 moment of the tournament. And like the spacing was different. The pads are set back much further than you'd normally see in a standard arcade for whatever reason, and the American players
so it's hard
did
to
not
read.
adjust to the the American players did not adjust to the difference in the pads at all. Chris, he almost failed a song, which I've literally never seen happen. You could say that you could argue that it compromised the integrity of the tournament, but I mean everybody played under the same conditions.
Yeah.
So it just meant that they weren't playing at their maximum capacity, which is kind of unfortunate. But I guess it achieved the goal of like showing off the newest DDR mix, and they announced that there will be a new software version in addition to the new cabinet called so the most recent DDR was called DDR-A. I think it was supposed to be read DDR Ace, and the new one is called A20. It celebrates the 20th anniversary of Dance Dance Revolution, which was in I think November of last year, September of last year. So I'm looking forward to that. I will probably get it in Round 1 arcades and Dave & Buster's arcades.
Yeah.
Probably as a software update. They probably won't buy the new like weird looking cabinet.
Gaudy cabinet, yeah.
I mean, it looks like it would fit in really well at Dave & Buster's.
Yeah, it looks like it would fit in really well in like Dubai.
So Round 1 might get them because they sometimes get new hardware. Like they're the only company that I think that would though.
Well, it looks interesting. Are you hoping they get it or not? I
mean, I don't care as long as they get the software. Like Round 1 always gets the new software versions as soon as they're available of like all the Kiwami games, which I really like. So when A20 comes out, I will make an effort to go over there. And periodically they do a lot of like events where they release new songs, and there are even some that came out near the end of the lifespan of regular A1.
Gotcha.
That I never got to play, so I'll try to make a trip to Round 1 soon just to like give it a shot. Although I played a little bit at MagFest and I felt like I was gonna die. Like I'm so out of shape. I feel like that like 6 months that I haven't been playing recently has like really like fucked up my stamina. Although I have no idea if I have any capacity to play anymore.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Well, having said that, does anybody have anything for the good of the order here?
No, I think I'm about set.
Okay, well, go ahead, please.
No, I'm totally fine. That's all I meant to say.
Okay, great. Well, that's the show for this week. Please remember to subscribe to the Corrective Consciousness YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You know, I never flub during the outro. Why is it always the intro? You can also catch us on Thursday for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Switch, Battle.net, and now Epic Games.
Yeah, I guess so, right? You can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you're interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, currently working on Binary Domain, or get in discussions with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me as OldManStompy on most major gaming and social media networks. I do not have an Epic Games account, but I do have a MTG Arena account, so you're welcome to challenge me in Magic the Gathering. Or don't, fine.
I will play with Squeeze Toy.
Unfortunately, that's not available yet on the it's mostly only standard cards.
Oh, that's not a standard card?
It's from fucking Mercadian Masks. It's like, how old is that
it's
card
the last
now?
one I remember coming out.
There actually is a Squee card in standard right now because they revisited Dominaria and he's immortal.
Of all people. All right, everybody. We'll catch you on Thursday for Corrective.
Until next time, everyone.
Cheers.